like what the Fed minutes are going to be for what is it, Wednesday?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and I wonder if like that'll maybe create some like I don't know like respite from the insane run that it's been having Tesla. In the last couple
Yeah,
of weeks.
it's that's the weird thing. It's the thing I don't get is none of this is a surprise. Like there's tons of people out there. That you can watch that'll or heck, not even that. There's just this general like um, my expectation is all that is priced in. And we're going to continue pushing through. Say up to like $1,200, right? Um,
Yeah, I think that
Something like
that
that.
seems pretty likely. I mean, there's still like a lot of energy in that initial movement. I think. Um, I do wonder, like, okay, if there ever is like just on a technical basis, like a point where those things do for every large jump that you have, like when you have like a breakout or something, that there is like an inevitable like pullback. Uh,
There's got to
you
be,
know.
and maybe we could do a thing on that. Is trying to forecast where's the top on this thing.
One thing I've been trying to understand a little bit more as I've delved into the trading kind of aspect of this is like, oh, well, there was a trend that had been established since the beginning of summer where it was it touched that second low or that support that it always had
Yeah,
that set what second time, and then it just kind of kept going up from there and uh, started defining this trend that initially we thought was going to be just like the Wyckoff distribution pattern,
yeah,
where it was going to be like a lower low at basically now is when we were
yeah,
anticipating that. Um, but what ended up happening was it was like this really strong trend to the upside where it's
yeah.
broken all time highs, and I'm reading this book recommended to me called Market Wizards, and I'm at this point where they're talking about this one really famous guy. Um, I forget the name. See, I said famous, and now I don't remember the name. Anyway, the point there's basically like okay, well, it's like still trending this really heavy in this one direction, um, and I kind of made the mistake. I like didn't quite see it that way, and I thought, oh, okay, well, like this could reverse at any minute.
Yeah,
When we had the broke out of the alt, so 1,000 basically, and I thought, oh crap, well, okay, like be prepared to just jump out at any time.
yeah,
Well, I guess thinking about it now, it's like, oh well, now it's like 1,100, past that now, like breaking just this insane level, and
yeah,
it makes you think like, oh okay, like you can't really fight a trend like that, especially when it gets momentum. Like it just
yeah,
has more like real energy to just keep going to pretty crazy places, and now the volatility's come back to it too. I mean, and
yeah,
like we were saying before, um, yesterday was uh, on the historical volatility, like I mean, that has been at an all-time low uh, since 2020. Like I think
yeah,
2020 in March, I want to say was the highest it was for for like even though it was trading at a lower price, by a lot, like it was the highest volatility if you were to graph that out, and like the point where they had the S&P inclusion right before 2021. That
yeah,
volatility was actually like even though it was high relative to what it was trading at like in the month or two prior, it was still a higher high than it was in summer like that we were
yeah,
seeing with all these like little uh, price increases. So that really made me think like, okay, well, this is a pretty big company and stuff, and like, you'd think like, oh, it's been really crazy this last year. Like that should be, uh, a continued thing. It should be volatile even in summer. But
hmm,
when I actually thought about it, like, oh yeah, wait, well, the price range it's been trading in has been like, uh, it hadn't had like $50 moves in a day. It was more like maybe like in summer, like where it would be like a rally.
there were very
Uh,
few times where
yeah,
we really got
it
that kind of
wasn't
jump.
like
Yeah,
it was always gonna be like these false breakouts, I think. And this book that I'm reading kind of corroborates that. Um, and but yeah, the point was is that like price action on it was like really just kind of minimal like compared to the prior times, and now that it's broken out, okay, like it was like
Hmm.
basically coiling into this movement that had just happened, I think. And I think the mistake I made, one way to look at it is a mistake, is fighting against that by like, oh, okay, like just cutting and running, like, because I felt like, oh,
Oh
I
yeah.
gotta be prepared to do that at any time, like hit my
Oh
target,
God.
like, okay, like I'll take that, that's fine. And well, okay, no, look, now it appears that it
I
has
got a
like
story for you.
room to run. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, yeah, it it seems kind of silly to really expect it to run that much higher. I don't really have any expectation of it running past $1,200. We basically kind of sopped up most of the gains, kind of
Yeah.
early. There is this pattern where it's almost like a step function where you go up, um,
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I've seen that
and
on
then
all
you
the
plateau.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, the story I wanted to tell was, I remember, before, it was early on during the March crash, um, and I remember watching like some video, like this momentum trader that was like, selling one of these systems, right? Like,
Hmm.
do this and I'll make you this much,
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And their whole thing was, to basically just go on momentum. It was straight momentum plays, and they had this distribution that was laid out like a normal distribution, with the bell curve, right?
Yeah.
And there were certain sigmas that you were supposed to, buy at, to basically catch it, and then you were supposed to sell, sell, sell. Um, and it's funny that that move, in February and March, was like the perfect time. Like that was like the
Oh,
perfect
you're
way to capitalize
that was
on that
Adam Kerr,
early
right?
spike. Was it? I
Yeah, I remember
Maybe it
you
was. Yeah, yeah.
talked about that because you were using like Williams R and like Natter and like
Uh,
trying to,
he-
right?
yeah, yeah. I know that I got some of that stuff, especially the Natter and Williams are, stats. Like those are really wonderful. And then TradingView screwed up my my thing when I tried to change them, so I couldn't get them back. But
Oh,
yeah,
right.
those are
Yeah,
good tools.
they are.
But
They are. Actually, I
yeah,
pulled it up on my.
but anyway, yeah, there was this momentum deal, and that was like literally the way. Like, and the guy didn't give a damn about the stock or the company or any of that stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It's That's a lot of work, and it's
Oh,
kind of scary,
okay. Actually, this is really interesting. I was just you reminded me of what I'm reading like right now in
Yeah.
Market Wizards was Richard Dennis. That I remember the name now.
Oh, okay.
He's like super famous, um, and like there's this kind of school of thought of like trading where people don't like they could trade. It doesn't matter what the name of the company or what it is or anything. Like they view it just purely as just numbers and
Hmm.
like probabilities and risk and stuff. So like. Uh, Basically that's all the technical part is like just understanding those variables and then uh, figuring out like okay the minimum amount like I'm going to lose on this and just running it out as as a numbers game
Yeah.
and that's it like um, I think it's interesting to consider that viewpoint definitely but I mean
It's
obviously
important.
being like Tesla you have your fundamental view of that and that's I think looking at it the long term, like your long term view is always going to outweigh this sort of short term market action.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of like my mind only goes to these places because, I've been through these cycles, and it always hurts. Like, when you've got a tax bill or something coming up,
Yeah.
and you do actually want to figure out more optimal times to liquidate, if you have to, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, I don't
it's
know. This is interesting because I feel like if you like have like a small cash position, that's like a hedge against whatever medium term
it,
things could be on the horizon, like the interest rate pike, stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. I know that I've got I could optimize this, or try to at least. Hmm. Well, I guess we kind of started out just brainstorming about stuff we could talk about. I wonder. Yeah. So okay. Well, that's price action. Um, and yeah, predictions. But there's a ton of other things. Like I don't really have a good. Um, well, we don't have an audience. So if you're
Oh,
watching this and you want us to talk about like a particular thing, you should probably like write a comment and be like, yeah, to talk about this thing because we love talking.
well, I feel like I'm in the middle of reading the book Market Wizard, so like I don't
Well,
know uh, anything really. Like,
is this a thing where I don't would it help if I read any of this or if I just what if I'm the moron and I ask you the questions about about the thing?
I don't know. Like,
That'd be
maybe
cool.
like I guess like part of the hook of like somebody getting into that would be like, well, I don't know anything, and like I think is cool watching other people figure stuff out,
Yeah, yeah.
and like I think there's value in that. So like you don't have like I don't think we have to be perfect to like provide something valuable. Maybe like
Oh, I'm so
because
far
like
from it. Yeah, I agree.
watching people make mistakes is like good because you could like see the learning process like happen like in real time. I think like I was watching this Dave Lee video this morning about like speed reading, and I
Oh
thought
yeah.
like, oh, this is I want to read more books and stuff, and like, oh, he's got videos on speed reading. Well, this is interesting. Like, I wonder like if this could be
Uh,
helpful or not. So,
did he? So what was it? I didn't see this video. What did he come away with? Like, does he
I'm in the
believe
middle of
in
it.
speed reading?
Oh, I mean,
Oh,
like the gist I got from the first video was that he had to like cram reading a ton of books in college because they said that they were going to basically like have them assigned so much work that like they had to build the skill like to be able to read faster. Like that was intentional on the part of
oh,
the course professor or whoever it was in his studies. So he said from a young age like he forced himself to learn how to read faster, and then he
I mean,
took out of that like these kind of concepts of reading books, which is like most books like have like a lot of them are going to be mostly fluff supporting a main idea, and then
yeah.
you could basically kind of shortcut around that, like, and not get bogged down in so much of the minutia of it, and still understand the point.
I
Uh,
can see the value of that. There are cases, certain written things that just do not lend themselves to that sort of reading. Like you cannot
yeah.
do that if you really want to understand like a computer science or math physics paper or
Oh,
something, right? Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't do that stuff. And if you're doing like reading, kind of hardcore philosophy or something that where you have these really wide abstractions and things have all sorts of implications and you're talking about some complicated system of something. Yeah.
Well, I would
Then
love
I
to add to
think,
that. Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I think the best materials I've ever found are the ones I don't only read once. They're gonna be things I
Yes.
go back to often. Like, I read this one post on up off of Wall Street Bets of all places, uh, about a guy who
It's legit.
he went from like 35K to like 1 point something million like in I mean, and this is like an outlier. This is really crazy, but like it is inspirational in a way because it's
Yes,
like
yes, it is.
I think there was serious thought behind it. Like it wasn't just like somebody YOLOing like
Yeah,
350 times, but in 350 trades, the guy was obviously successful. He had a higher win rate. Like he had enough of a win rate to make it,
yeah,
that he came out profitable in the end. But like I go back to that post frequently because it's like, hey, this is a really good example of like thought in our current market that I think maybe is better than what like because okay, I shouldn't talk. I just started out too recently, but uh, maybe the
yeah.
important thing
Haven't
is
we
like
all, right?
to learn quickly, like from your mistakes. Like I think a mistake that I made a lot was basically like shooting a shot and then just like kind of praying it was going to work, like without actually thinking about like a general strategy of like enter and exit and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But back to the point though, which is like being able to find information that you think is like going to be more helpful, like and not just like speed reading or blowing through like a thing just to say like, oh, I read this book, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
not getting anything out of it. Um, before this, there was before it was like earlier in like I want to say like August or like late July. I grabbed a bunch of books off Amazon. Like I'm looking it up right now. There was techno. Okay, this is one I remember watching a video of like the most like five essential books or whatever like for trading or for just like general market stuff. Um,
Uh-huh.
and one of them I picked up. This is off of a Rainer Teo video series that I'd watched. So like
Oh, I'm not
just trying to
familiar
look.
with who that is.
Yeah, he's a trader I found on YouTube, but he seems pretty prominent. But yeah, it was one of the ones that I think I got a lot of value out of was technical analysis of the financial markets.
Hmm.
Um, the second one recommended was Market Wizards, and the one I found I don't not sure if it was on the list, but I kind of found on my own was Trading Option Greeks. Uh, and like so I basically tried to read those three books before thinking about other stuff. And like we were talking before like during the when we were looking at Tesla right before the run up in the last couple of
Yeah.
weeks. um, and like I was starting to slowly try to apply those things like in those put trades. It
Uh-huh.
didn't really work because I did all sorts of mess up stuff, but like um, one of the things I think that like I've learned pretty quickly is like you shouldn't double into a losing trade. It's not a good idea. I got lucky that one time. Uh,
One time.
because like yeah, that was really bad, really bad. I don't feel good about that. And I don't feel good about that being so recent too. So like this is why I don't feel like I'm very qualified to talk like this is about the point where somebody's like commenting to be like, "Okay, cool, then shut up." So,
Well, no, okay. So for the benefit of I don't know, people, maybe you should do you feel comfortable just kind of just describing this trajectory of okay, so you went long on a couple of really good companies, Tesla, Square, Palantir.
yeah.
You've done really well on that. And then you were doing options, on the side, kind of early on, for over a year now. It's been shoot, more like 18 months, almost, not quite.
Yeah, I
Like,
started my first one was like a little over a year ago now, which
okay,
is like that's like no time at all. Like
yeah,
if I really think about it.
and during that time, up until very recently, like how much money did you make overall?
Okay, so like
Just in options. I mean, yeah, because you're long.
uh I don't okay, like I could tell you I'll just kind of walk you through like consecutively on like my trades. Um
Well,
my first one was on Square. It was like an earnings play, which I basically bought like a slightly out of the money call on Square. Um and yeah, that was like actually I have to like go back and look specifically. I can't remember if it was exactly out of the money, but it was basically like watching it run up. Like it was on this
mhm.
trend, like it was just going up to like 45 degrees almost, like, and um I got like cold feet. I didn't want to hold into earnings, so I sold it, and I think got like 300 bucks out of it. And then I saw after earnings, like it was like after hours, it had gapped up, and I felt so bad. Like that was the first like heartbreak I think I ever had, was like
Yeah,
feeling like, oh
sailing
man,
away, like
like that could have been $1,000 or something, 1,500 bucks profit.
right.
Um, and I I did everything. I like put a ton of like thought into it. Like, all right, I'm gonna buy like 2 months out. Here's the strike price I'll pick. Like, um, and just feeling I felt like a total like idiot for just getting out of that early. Um, and I felt like that, like kind of bad for like a week or so. And then the next one I did after that was like, oh God, it's kind of hard to do without the chart, without my list in front of me
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
me too.
But um, uh, the second like real big event I think was like Tesla. I bought a call on Tesla for battery day. That
Oh
was
wow,
like
this is like like last
okay, so
year.
like basically when I
Yeah,
started options trading, I started with like $3,000 in that account
yeah.
in my E-Trade account. Um, and that Square call, I think it was like something like oh I don't know like half. I think it was like it was really bad. It's like you basically risk half your if you're trying to start out trading like trading a company like Square or Tesla, if you only have like 3K and you don't have
Hmm.
like level 3 options approval, you basically are putting so
Yeah,
much money into one trade. It's like ridiculous. So I'd
yes.
be risking 100% of my account to do that, which like at the time like I thought, well, okay, um, yeah, I know this is wrong. Probably shouldn't do this. I probably should just like think of something else, but I'm gonna try it anyway because this is basically like speculative, for me, and just want to see what'll happen. And like, also, I didn't know anything then. I mean, I don't know much now, but like even then, it was like way less, right? So like, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I just figured like, what's okay? The worst that could happen is I could lose all of that, and I'm okay with it. Like, all right, fine. Um, so leading to Tesla, I bought a Tesla call because I thought, all right, well, Battery Day is going to be this big event, and like it's going to send the stock up like really high because they always seem to deliver like amazing news and stuff like,
Hmm.
um, and we did get a little bit of a pop, like before the actual event, like because this is what
Yeah.
always happens is before major events, like you get some kind of run up, like anticipation building for it, and then usually what ends up happening is it dumps, and that's I remember at the time too. There was a lot of speculation on like whether or not they were going to announce like acquisition of a lithium miner. Like so, like there
Oh
was a
yeah,
bunch of
yeah,
people
yeah,
like speculating on Vale and LAC, which
yeah.
I incidentally ended up trading too at that time. Just like, all right, screw it, I'll like give that a shot as well. I actually
Holy
made
crap.
money on that trade. I made more on that trade. I came out 500 ahead in that trade and lost everything in the Tesla one. Like because I just for some reason that trade worked out better because I just instinctively thought like, oh, okay, people are just chatting. They're just like buzzing about this. Like
Yeah.
and that's like actually doing something right now whereas like this like 3K bet that I took on Tesla is like kind of precarious like because people I don't know, it just was like fluctuating and then it was getting so
Hmm.
close and stuff. Um just because like okay there's people talking about this other thing like I'm just gonna go do that and I didn't even think about it. I just took the trade and like then just got
Holy
out the
good.
next day because I thought like they're probably not gonna announce that but people think they are so like why not just like see what happens. um
Wow.
and
Well,
that's
so
that
that
was a successful trade. But then I lost everything on Tesla after that, and then I got really self-critical and did like a huge postmortem right up on like what I did wrong. And there was
that's
also
interesting. How did you get the idea that that doing a write up, of this thing that's gone bad would help? That's interesting because I've never thought particularly to do that and put it in written form.
hmm. Let me see if I can find it actually. Do you mind if I go like
Well, you can if you want to go through the content, but my question is
well,
just about
I'm
like,
recording the screen, so it'll probably cover up the video if I do that. But
yeah, it
I can go.
probably
I could dig it up later, and like I could, we could
yeah.
talk about that as a topic later. But uh,
I just meant that this particular content that you were recording down in your postmortem, it might not be as maybe broadly applicable, right? As like the whole idea of you know some shit happened to you, and instead of just stewing over it, like it seems like you went and made an outline to think about it
oh
and
yeah,
kind of like
I,
hone your thinking.
I think because I can still remember some of the stuff I wrote, like and because I would go and research like okay how did this happen to other people and like what is generally like a good beginner like what are the common mistakes that like we'll make as beginners like
Uh-huh.
because I'm a beginner like I want to learn that like quickly. I know that it's going to be impossible to not be a beginner like I mean but that's okay like I
Yeah,
think the
yeah.
important thing is to like consider like okay like if this is like a super like 101 thing like I want to know that like uh and I think what one thing I remember taking out of that I learned from like some posts, another Reddit posts and stuff like that was like, if you were like pretending that your capital is like like soldiers in war or something, you wouldn't just send them blindly into go fight. Like if you were like a
Hmm.
general or somebody like going in, or you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't just go do that on a hunch. You would probably want to like do research and like
Well,
really
that's if you're a
formulate a
good
plan.
general, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I just don't feel like, but that's the thing. It's like I know that like I've done that before on like the lithium mining thing where it's like,
Oh,
you
that.
just like oh like I just see like I don't know what it is like I've read these books like Trading in the Zone where they kind of talk about this like getting in the zone is like where you just don't really it's not like really thinking. It's more like if you're playing a sport and like you're trying to like anticipate like a movement or something or like you're doing it by a sort of
Yeah.
this like um I don't know like in the back of your brain somewhere reaction to it like you just kind of wait and then react like and you just like there's like a spring to it versus like trying to think like okay like if this thing happens I'm gonna do this and like acting like I don't know like it's like I notice sometimes like when I've done stuff wrong or it goes against me, it's like usually when I thought like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing and hope it works,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be like, okay, it's not working, but I'm gonna hope it's gonna reverse or it's gonna like, okay, my worst trade ever had been when I've lost like 50% of my capital on the trade and then just thought, okay, like
In
it's gonna turn
options.
around.
That's the
Yeah, in
important part here.
options, like
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like I put like it was like the height of the 2021. Everything was like starting to like correct. Like it was right after the GME thing. Um,
Oh, yeah.
because I thought like, oh yeah, all right, like it's probably gonna keep being volatile like that like in the next couple of days. Um, I didn't have like a profit target in mind when I took the trade on like these. Okay, you asked me like the consecutive kind of like nature of the of or consecutive history of the trades and stuff. Um, I before that I got into Square. Like that was basically the first like sort of success that I had with trading
Yeah.
like in the beginning where it was October, well, first September was when I got into the Tesla thing. I got into Apple. I bought Apple September 1st, and September 2020 was like the first September, like just horrible month where
Yeah.
September 1st was like great, and then like September 3rd was like awful because like all of tech just started like dumping, and
Yeah. This was our
uh,
first run in with macro, you know, like
yeah, that
that
was
was
that
against
like
us.
uh I would love to go back and look at some of these because it was like I bought like Apple 135 calls because I thought, yeah, it's gonna be like probably that like next week or the week
Yeah,
after,
yeah, yeah.
and then it was like 115, and then what I did after that was I bought like, all right, well, okay, no, no, I'll just buy Apple 115 call to like just kind of dollar like average into it with options, which doesn't like
Yes.
kept making this mistake like where I would just like all right, the strike price, like it's gotten now my in the money is now like out of the money, so I'm gonna buy an in the money call to basically try like double
Oof.
up on it. Yeah, it was horrible. I ended up having to cut all those positions in October because they were for like oh God, it was like base. I think I even picked the wrong expiries too because like I think Theta got to me pretty quickly as well by
Yeah.
having a shorter expiry call. So there was basically this point in October where I'm like, all right, like I've lost a lot of money doing this. Like I got to get out of this, like because I'm gonna lose everything if I stay in this trade. Which
Yeah.
I remember being like really worried that like, well, what if November happened? Like, because yeah, some of these were November calls, I want to say, and I kept thinking like, well, what if November like happens and it's like starts to trend up again? I'm gonna feel stupid for getting out of this trade. Like,
Hmm.
and I think there was one where I did. It was like I want to say it was maybe Square. I you know I'm gonna go back on my information that I recorded and like collate this so I could actually give you a cohesive narrative on this. But um, there was this point where I was like, all right, well, options like the way I was doing it like is not really working. So I'm just gonna like kind of just go low key on this. I'm writing my own like sort of postmortem, like what I did wrong and like what I don't want to do again in the future and stuff. And I started looking into Theta Gang, like which is the typical progression I think for uh, Wall Street bets degenerate gamblers, like which is like become an option seller. Like if things go against you enough, like all right, fine, cool, I'm gonna stop losing money, aggressively, and like just start selling options to recoup some of those losses. And so
Oh,
yeah, like because like to being an option seller, it's like people do that for like consistent income. Like it's like slower, um, like way higher probability of profitability. Like it's just you're not making like crazy. Uh, I
right.
mean like if you're for me it was like okay like I'm gonna start like if I had like three I don't know, like 3 or 5K portfolio, like I would be selling puts on like companies I'd want to own. But so like what you could afford would be like maybe selling like a put on something that's trading for like 20 bucks or 30 bucks or something. And even then, it's like, you want to think about it in terms of like your max loss. Like, so if you don't have a large portfolio, it's still challenging
Yeah.
to take the risk management seriously and stuff. And like, that's something I still struggle with, even like, even, even a year later, like, yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like it's not a long time. But
So I think we should walk forward, because you've done a very good job talking about, um, you know, just starting from scratch basically at it and how brutal that was.
oh,
Um,
yeah.
and but you kept going, um, you know, and
Well,
and obviously you ended up in a pretty good place. So maybe now's a good time to kind of tell the other half of that story. Um,
well, there was sort of a point where like I got into the Theta Gang stuff for like like I just kind of messed with that for like a couple like a month, uh, and then the market kind of changed. Like the trend had changed from like being downtrending in like September October to being like okay, it hit a point of like maximum sort of like irrational fear. I don't know how, like it's not the right way to say it. I mean, but like I was watching Square, and there was this one day, like during, because the election cycle was like really crazy and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And I remember watching Square and seeing, because I had some success on calls on that, like before, and I remember looking at that and thinking like, okay, it just got to like, it's been trying to break out of 200, and it just like basically got pulled down to 150 really
Hmm.
quickly. That doesn't make any sense. Like in a way that just before the what I'd been seeing was just like okay, and it was like the same part of my brain that told me to do the lithium thing just told me like okay, just I'm just gonna go in on some square calls right now. Like I'll buy three of like
Uh-huh.
different strikes just in case I'm wrong. Um, and again, not really practicing good risk management and stuff, but I thought like, I mean, I'm not gonna hold on. Like, I'll just see what happens. Like, I just wanna, I don't know. Like, like I wasn't. I did again. Like, I don't want to retroactively think I was being smart or anything. Um, I had no plan on how I was gonna exit other than like it's gonna be above the strike price, and that's when I'm gonna exit, which is like not good. Uh, and I didn't have any idea. I didn't have any. I didn't set like here's the most I'm willing to lose on this.
Uh-huh.
So still aping into this basically. But um, what ended up happening was like it just ripped like into November and then December, and those things just got greener and greener. Same thing went with Palantir. It was like I didn't really buy any options on Palantir. I just started buying shares on that because I wanted to do the wheel strategy on that, which was you sell puts, hoping to get assigned. You acquire the shares when you get assigned, and then you start selling covered calls against them. Like you could
Hmm.
do it weekly or monthly. Um, and I got a position on that one. It was like trading like $10, and then it 4x'd like in before what was it January, um,
Yeah.
uh, And then when they did that, and then the mistake I made was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna buy like these expensive leap options on it when the volatility was really high, and then it got IV crushed like right after when. So that was like the first. This has like been the worst trade I'd done was that because there was all these indicators like, okay, here's why like you can get off the train at any moment and it'll be fine so long as you do it before
Yeah.
like before this like share lockup expiry in February. I didn't do that. I doubled down on it because I was like, no, like this is like there's this attitude going around that like all news is like is bullshit and like uh
Yes, I remember that.
yeah, and so like we'd gotten used to like things just like okay, stocks only go up, like you know, if they're saying something it's FUD. Um nope. It was like earnings got misreported, I think, in February, and then also the share lockup expiry, and then the stock tanked. It cratered to like 25, and then people were basically all hoping like, oh, I mean, you know, there's like Kathy Wood, ARK Invest, like buying it, and so like it got these kind of like little subsequent rallies, but it was on a downtrend until it bottomed out in May, and
So
then
was that just briefly? I do recall that there was, Square earnings, got basically leaked the night before early or something like that.
oh
Was one
yeah,
of is at some point here. I don't think it's too important, but
oh
I
that's
do
okay.
remember living through that, and I think that really burned you. It was like one of those like things that literally snatched like they outperformed,
Oh yeah, no, that
and
was what made it because I'd sold before the earnings because I thought um I just thought that like it wouldn't have done that that it could have gapped up. Like
yeah.
I just assumed that was gonna be like I don't know like just something where you know you just like take like just I'll be fine making $300
Hmm.
and so I just took what was on the table there, and I didn't. I think it came out like before the call actually happened, right? And then it went up really high. I'm like, oh crap, that would have been like 3K. But then,
Yeah.
and I felt like really felt bad about that, and this has always been a thing of mine, is like sometimes it seems that like missed winning is feels worse than losing like
Oh
in a
yeah.
way like which is like I don't think that's common for most for people because like I always hear about people like really feeling like their heart aching from like the money they lost but it's like feeling like you missed out is like at least for me is like it's like the one that got away and that is like very much like oh man like that like I had it in my hands is like the worst it's like feels
Oh.
worse than feeling like well I had money in my hands, and then I lost it through bad decision making. It's like I don't know if it's like if it's a red number, it's like oh okay, well I accept it because it's like losses are part of the game. But like
Oh,
if you're
yes.
intending to like think of the best strategy to like uh to if you're trying to think of like okay like how do I like if people could make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time like they would want to do that do whatever way it takes to do that they would do it and it's like if you
Yes.
suddenly realize like oh wow I had a winning lottery ticket in my hand that like would give me like just a crazy amount of money like all these other little smaller trades or whatever just don't feel as like you know if
So
you
that
measure
hurts
yeah it hurts
because
that way
basically
yeah
when the option is basically all like is worthless. Like the opportunity is gone, but
yeah
the underlying stock that you're holding that's in the red, at least you have the hope that someday it'll rise.
oh it's
I
like
think that might be underneath what you're basically talking about.
that is
Like,
like this like forlorn hope of like when you're bag holding like it's
oh
like
yeah,
oh yeah well you know it's one thing you could do that with like stocks and stuff with options it's like I thought with like leaps like I was such an idiot like I mean with leaps I thought well okay I mean I got a year and then okay back then when I bought them I put like a lot of money into Palantir leaps because I thought okay like my thought is by next year like this thing is going to I mean right now it is trading at like 35 30 35 somewhere so it's like
yeah.
slightly OTM leaps are like oh I mean the premium was really high on them it was like $800 for a 37 by the way I picked $37 strike price which is like why Like I didn't look at open interest. I didn't do any of that stuff. Uh, it was like 35, like 30 or 35 bucks when I bought them. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm just gonna buy these like $5 or $6 out of the money for $800 a contract, um, and then just buy a bunch of them, like real smart. Uh, and then a month later, those things were trading at like 300 bucks because they just got sliced in half because the IV
Oh,
just got sucked out of it, and then uh, just all sorts of just I don't know, just like people pulled their money out. um,
so up
and
until
that
this
that
point,
wasn't the
basically.
worst. They're trading at like 60. I don't know, like 50 or 60 cents right now. Like not much.
Whew,
Yeah.
jeez. So basically, now we're kind of winding up now. It's spring of this year, and the whole time I am dumping, like, every time, every 2 to 4 weeks, like we're on a call, and I'm like, hey, this is terrible. Like, you haven't made any money.
Yeah.
Quit. And I felt bad because I was like, what? Wait, this is sort of akin to gambling, and it's doing terribly compared, um, to just buy and hold, the long term kind of stuff that I do, and the same stuff you do, right? And I was like, so anyway, just for completeness, I was saying, hey, this is unrealistic, and kind of dangerous and scary. Take the easy route, and you didn't. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Well, because like I, I, I guess like maybe you could argue it's like once you taste the like what this sort of derivative thing can do, like oh okay, like it says it like it's a cheaper way to get the price movement like
yeah,
multiplied in a way, like because you have the option Greeks doing for every rise in the price, like you have the mechanics at work to like that can be multiplied, positive or negative, right? um,
yeah,
so and I'd seen what happened during like these like run ups and stuff, like with Square, all tech stocks rebounding like in fall and early winter of 2020. um, and I thought about the price of like, okay, if you like, for Tesla, for instance, like if you just buy Tesla shares, like I mean, over the long run, you will obviously be ahead, like in a big
yeah,
way. But like entry still kind of matters, I think. Like over 10 or 20 years, not so much. But
yeah. Well, for
uh,
you have a fairly good position,
yeah.
and yeah.
Uh,
Well, go ahead.
well, I was
Sorry.
gonna say, when you told me all that stuff, I thought, well, okay, like, there's a part of my brain that was like, oh crap, yeah, he's really right, like in a way, and yeah, um, but there's also another part of my brain that was like, well, like maybe what he's trying to tell me is like, okay, like you just need to not be like what if you're gonna do it, like you need to like do make it like just be good, do something differently, uh,
Hmm.
like you right you, basically yeah, you suck at this, like just like change it or get the hell out. And I thought like okay, like but you didn't like say it like that. It was basically like you said like you're terrible at this, like I would rather be me than you, which is like really good.
I'm
you know
sorry, but
no, it's actually a really good
those are the
motivator
words.
because it's like, well, what I thought is like, oh, so what you're really saying, it's like as if you did one of those like, what I'm really saying is like you should maybe think about this a little bit more and like go do some
Right.
research. So that's what I did is I thought, well, okay, like I've been able to like make like I could make at least $300 like on a trade. Like I mean, I might lose like 1,000 on another one, and like
Yeah.
so I'm down $700. But like what I could do is I could just like take $300 and like go buy some books, and then so I bought like a bunch of I bought like the
You spent
technical
300 bucks
analysis.
on books?
I actually didn't even keep track of how much I spent. I didn't money was no
Wow,
object to
man.
me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a couple of months ago, I just thought, all right, I'm just gonna buy a bunch of these books, and I don't care how much they cost. I think I paid $70 for the options Greek book, and I read it.
Damn.
I read it like the only the only chapter I didn't really cover too well was the interest rate one yet. I still need to kind of go back and bone up on that. But like, um, there was like all sort. And I mean, some of this stuff, like, what was really good was that I'd had experience trading them before I read the book. So like, even though I
Yeah.
traded them terribly, reading the book helped. Having the experience before was like, oh, I already like kind of know what some of this stuff is. So it's not like just information that's just like dead textbook kind of stuff. Like,
Hmm.
and the stuff that they were talking about happened to me. So it was like, oh, all right, perfect. Like I have an experience of how this like actually works out. So like I just kind of kept reading. It wasn't the first one I read. The first one I read was technical analysis of financial markets, and I really liked that one because it was like had a really in depth like well, actually, no. The way that Rainier Tio described it was like kind of a grab bag of like kind of all the market concepts in one book, and so you could basically get like a cursory overview over each kind of section. Like it started with like futures, and then afterwards became like explaining what was like just like regular stocks, like commodities, etc. Like um, and like then the different types of charts like candlesticks, point figure, etc. There was one on I forget the name of it, the one you showed me, but um, what really hooked me was when they started explaining like oscillators and stuff like that, like because that was the part that like I wasn't like really using. I didn't. I just saw people talking about it. I didn't really know, and now I'm like okay, starting to learn the basics of it now of like what
Hmm.
RSI is and like MACD and the like I Golden Cross, like that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
basically like the one of the concepts I'm starting to like kind of hone in now is understanding like when things line up on multiple time frames, like looking for that sort of thing before to have like trade reasons. Like you before when I was making okay, if somebody who's an actual experienced trader is listening to this, like I'm like I'm just trying to learn the basics here of like doing this stuff. Before I was like as a total noob, like I'm thinking, oh, like I like tech company. That means like I'm
Yeah.
gonna go buy like I think it go up. I'm gonna go buy option on it and it's gonna make money or something. Hope like I would buy Apple thinking like oh like Apple maybe will do AR stuff. Like I'm gonna go buy some calls on that like and just hope that I'm right and not really have any like no edge or anything to
Right.
kind of guide my decision making. Now, like, okay, like I'm still kind of stupid. I'm still pretty stupid, but I'm gonna go try like make put more information behind a decision, and hope like still hope it works and stuff. But like, I think now I'm gonna be less like okay, hope isn't a strategy. That's always like a good like
Yeah.
thing that I've learned and stuff. Like I would definitely learn that from like diamond handing out of the money calls for a year that just aren't going anywhere and stuff. So like, um, but yeah, like basically there was like this. I felt like okay, putting money into research, like whatever you win on a trade, like maybe take a portion of that and like go buy more books and like keep reading because I've always enjoyed that. Like, um, and I remember just like going, like being really excited for the weekends because it would give me time to go and really like study this kind of stuff. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, I just could do that for hours and hours and hours. And then after I'd finished it, it was like, I still go back to it. And we're still making trades like in between because we were looking at this Wyckoff pattern, thinking like, oh, with Tesla, like if there's a possibility it could drop to like the 600s, or like we had like this idea that like oh maybe it could be in the 500s, like and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember you were like thinking like okay just buy shares, don't buy options on this. This is really like like
Yeah.
it's a really bad
Because
roll
I
of the
haven't been
dice.
through that same curve. Like I've never bought or sold an option, you know?
Yeah.
And so to me, it was like I've got no freaking clue how that stuff works. It's a bunch of scary technical stuff. Um,
Uh.
yeah, and I was wrong on both counts. I was wrong on the prediction, and yeah,
Uh, I uh, I was gonna say I remember like in my head, I don't know if I really told you like, but I just was thinking like, okay, like, all right, he's got a point. Like, I will buy shares. Like, that's always a good idea and
Hmm.
stuff. But I just remember thinking like, well, if I have like this much capital in my trading account, like, um, if I buy options, if I'm correct, at least on enough on like getting a trend, like I couldn't articulate it in that fashion then, but like if I'm correct enough on that, and I just stay in the trade, like I will make money. If I hold it for a period of like a week or two, and if it's like something where the option doesn't have like um, an expiry that's really near. Like a month expiry is bad because theta really kicks in like
Yeah.
around that time. So like that thing has to move a lot every day to offset its theta decay, and especially if it's out of the if it's in the money, then you get some of that value basically into the contract. But like if it's out of the money, then yeah, that thing's going to zero if it doesn't do anything. So like there was that, and then the other thing I started to kind of push myself a little bit more was to like be more fluid with being in trades. Like before, I would just buy them as if they were stock almost, which is like really
Hmm.
bad. Like even though in my head I knew that they had expiry to worry about, like I would buy them and hold them, like even if the price action was moving. What I know now is that like okay, if I'm going into a trade, like there's a point in the price action where my trade idea is going to be wrong. It's going to be
Hmm.
invalid. Like by because if I was making it based off of like what the price, like what the candles were doing, or like what the like where just like the way the chart is moving basically, like if I thought like it was gonna zig and then it zagged, like well crap, I guess now I would like to figure that out before I lose a lot of money. So like
Yeah.
now I will try cut a loss quicker uh than I would have before. Before I would have been like I could lose 80% on this, and I'm still confident in like the thing because like it's just the diamond hands mentality is like really bad.
Yes.
Or at least I think it is for like options trading
Well,
because
it's when it's unwarranted, right? When there's
when
no
it's
fact of
unwarranted, yeah.
reality.
But like you, now that would have helped me a little bit. It's just like the shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like what would have helped me also would have hurt me in like 90% of the time on these other trades. Because like if I look at my right before the what happened with Tesla, if I looked at all my other trades, like I mean I was still red for the year. Um,
Hmm.
I was down 50K total, and then some of that being wash sales, like stupid, awful stuff.
Yeah.
Um, that now I have like deferred loss into next year. Um, so like for this year it would have been minus 18, and then now is basically like hugely green off of
Yeah.
off of like two
Well,
trades. So
I
like,
want to make that the subject of the next question, but I
okay.
also have to go to the dryer to make it stop
Do you want me to pause
sounding that
this?
beep. Sure. It doesn't really matter. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
okay. Okay.
10 seconds.
All right.
Yeah, it's no fair that we you know doing the laundry,
Oh,
and
yeah, that's all
doing
right.
it silently
My
and
laundry
stuff.
machine's behind me. I have like my dryer and stuff like right behind
Oh
my
yeah.
second window over there. Uh,
Well,
uh,
maybe from the proceeds of this amazing show that we're doing, we'll be able to buy a green screen, and
yeah, that would be
200
good.
years.
I don't know. I feel as I'm reciting all this stuff, I feel like I'm doing it with like still kind of too cocky of a cadence, honestly.
No,
Like
no.
given
I,
all of the
I think
horrible lessons I'm
you're
learning.
really burying the lead here,
Mm,
because you know it's important that you really give like a good understanding. There are no overnight successes, right? Like there's no um, like we kind of have this bias, right? Because we definitely tend to like forward like results, or people that win, end up getting press, and people that lose are kind of ignored. And so
Oh
you're definitely
yeah.
combating that with all of your comments, like saying, "Hey, this is really shitty." Like I don't think that it's very clear to anybody listening in, except for the last couple of sentences where you're like, you ended up massively in the green. So I want to talk about, um, basically October, right, and the Tesla calls, and maybe let's just go like linearly. What was your experience like? I talk to you every day, but I want to hear you tell the story as
Okay.
you remember it, because
All right. Well, so when I started just basically chasing Tesla, I
it's
was
part of September, right?
it was before
With the
that.
calls.
I think I was like watching it in July. There was a point where I remember buying like, all right, I'm gonna buy a Tesla call. It was like 5K, 4 or 5K or something.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I started going into that thinking like, all right, like I'm just gonna basically like I know that if it goes up a little bit, like it'll be at least like I don't know, like 10 or 15%, and I could
Hmm.
just take that and like kind of like. But at this point, my account isn't like the worst loss I've. Oh man, see, I can't get into the story without explaining like all the other mistakes that I made.
Well,
You know,
suffice it to say, you made a shit ton of mistakes,
yeah,
like early on. Okay,
yeah, no, that's you're right. I mean, if I explain one, I kind of explain them
you got them
all
all.
in a way because like, I didn't even tell you about ArcG where I bought like ArcG because I was like Kathy Woods like genomics is gonna be like huge like this it's gonna explode this next couple of years. I thought. I'll just buy the call winner fund because everybody's gonna believe that like everybody's gonna
But
want to
and
buy this
full
fund and it's gonna make the calls for this fund just go crazy like
full disclosure, that's my other holding. It's I've got mostly Tesla and like 4 grand in ArcG that I just will not sell because I'm still in the green on it.
Yeah, no, it's
Still
great.
positive,
Hold the
and
fund. Don't
yeah,
don't
yeah,
gamble
yeah,
options on that because it's like,
yeah.
especially like the funny thing is like that was it was actually green position, and it was with money I didn't know what to do with because I thought, all right, I just sold out of like Square, cash is trash, etc., etc.
Yeah,
Buy
yeah,
buy leaps on ArcG and Square and like other stuff, and then like February rolls around, it was like this high watermark for ArcG, like where it was like
yeah.
never gonna reach 115, and it's like at like 80 something right now, I think.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
and yeah, so anyway, basically, long story short, that was a loser that I held on to way too long. Um, and near the end,
Options on Archie.
just don't listen to me about options, basically. Like,
Well, wait. So okay, so that was earlier this year. And by the way, I have plenty of like boneheaded things I did, like
yeah.
uh, that. I'm not sure this is the best place to jam in, but I want to get to September. Because we talked about I had my Wyckoff pattern, and I honestly didn't study the Wyckoff method, really well. I basically saw a chart and had a bad idea, and um, and so on. But no, I wanted to get to
There was a certain point where that chart was looked valid, and then a certain point in time where it was invalid, and where we determined that it was invalid was 780 on Tesla
oh
because
yeah, like
that was the
but
key. Like, we kept expecting the
we were
spring to break
sure at
out,
that
and
point. Yeah,
right,
but
like,
even before that, I remember selling at 720
yeah,
and doing that to like 100 shares, and I was right. The problem, like it would have been fine, but we ended up dropping, what was it, 650, and I
yeah.
didn't rebuy, because I didn't fully understand the shape of it, and yeah. So anyway, that was backdrop, and I basically only lost. I did a couple of dumb things, like I ended up buying at 760, and a couple of times in those suckers bets, right after open.
Oh, like
Um,
the sucker. Yeah, right.
and
Yeah,
I sold that out, and and then I do remember, you were texting me right at open, and you're like, "Hey, 708." Like I know that 708 price flashed right across,
yeah.
and I was sleeping, and I didn't. And anyway, I had two more opportunities to get in below what I had sold it for, and I didn't. And so anyway, I ended up rebuying at 735. After we got this pop,
Yeah.
and so I only ended up losing 3 shares. Out of so I went from 777 shares down to 774, and yeah, I was like, so I kind of sidestepped because I didn't do any of the amazing, fancy and dangerous things you were doing. Um, and yet, anyway, by September rolls around, and we're still talking about all of this stuff, and you decide to get back in yet again on Tesla calls.
Oh, yeah. So before the that big drop that we had to 650 in like August, I want to say. I was like I wanted to buy Tesla calls. Like so I bought one and I remember getting out of that at a like slight profit
Hmm.
because it was like trying to break it broke to 726 I think and it looked like it was going to break out from that range.
Hmm.
And I remember talking with you and you said like, "Nah, man, like I'm this is where I'm selling right now because I think this Wyckoff pattern is
Oh, was
going to
it
happen."
was it 726?
Yeah, like it was making a run for the 735 or somewhere around there, I want to say.
No, that's where I bought back in.
No, 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 this is before. So like this is
Oh,
basically early August. There was this I'm going to pull up a chart right now so because like this is how I remember it. Um, there was a point where okay, it was this breakout in end of July into August where it did a
hmm,
run up, um, and it consolidated for a few days, and it looked like it was going to break out to the upside. But then over the weekend, news came out like the whole market dumped
yeah,
Monday, and then it dumped to 650, and then rallied from there. So like then
yeah.
that started the next leg up, and then about this point on September 7th, it broke to like 760. And that was when we were talking with each other, and you were like, "Oh my God! Like, I think it's like, oh my God, it might actually go to
Oh yeah, this
780."
could get away from me. And
Yes.
then I was scrambling to make sure
Yep.
that
So I was basically still doing trading counter to that. I was buying puts.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
like, but right before that weekend when it dumped, I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna inverse myself. I'm gonna go buy a put instead of a call." Like just because Max told me like, like for some reason he's like really skeptical of this thing breaking out. So like maybe I'll just buy a put and see what happens. Like I'd never bought puts on anything before.
Yeah, you made
Uh,
money on that one. That was
I
the
did, I did. I made like I don't know like was it
was it 5 grand?
no? It was like I got what was it? I bought like a 720 put, I think, and then it dumped to like 650, but I got out before that. I sold that around like 680 or 670 or somewhere. So like
Wow. Yeah,
I
yeah.
made a bit
Okay.
of money, but I thought, "Oh my God, like that wasn't supposed to happen like at all." So and I wasn't thinking like I kept thinking like, "Oh, okay, it could have more downside. It might be a dead cat bounce on this leg that it's doing because there was some like bad news that came out too coinciding with like NTSB or something. So
Oh
like I just
yeah,
figured
yeah.
it was just gonna keep like on a down. I thought it was a trend change. It was not. The trend was is continuing because what 650 was a key level for Tesla where it had been following since like if you looked at like a technical setup for it, it'd been following that since like March 2020
Yeah.
and uh, um, anyway, so there was I kept trying to do this puts on Tesla anytime it would get to this sort of like uh, it was like went to 720 and I thought okay I'm gonna buy puts on it and like it'll get pulled back down to 700 like trying to do this like week in week out kind of thing of like buying a
Yeah.
put on it to take advantage of this like really short price action. I was wrong like every time. What ended up happening
Yeah.
is I bought puts at like 726, um, and then it ripped to like 735, and I thought,
Yeah.
oh holy shit, um, wow, okay, that's not good. But like it's supposed to go down because like this is like gonna be, it's gonna get rejected before it gets to 780. Like that's what the
Yeah.
Wyckoff thing said. So it got to like 756, and I doubled into my put position.
Oh no.
I bu- I bought like I kept buying the same strike price, like 720 uh, put, because they got they get cheaper as they get out of the
Yeah.
money,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Um,
What a deal, man.
wow, yeah, oh my
Florida
gosh,
property.
screaming deal. Like, and like I thought, well, I got to play the bear side of this because like this is like this analysis from the Wyckoff thing made me believe that that was the right decision. Um, and I kept like going up. It was like like tickling like 760, et cetera, et cetera. And like in my head, I'm like, oh man, I'm like getting kind of worried. But I'm like basically half down on this position.
You're
Uh,
half down, and somebody's got to be Gordon Johnson. So, I mean,
so like there's this point where I thought like, okay, well, even if everything, even if it gets to that, like that basically just means I'm at break even. Like there's no
yes.
money to be made on this thing. Um, and I can't remember. There was like I don't have it in front of me, like my exact trade set, because I did a bunch of other stuff in that. Like I was trying to like basically figure out how to save it, like which is the worst thing to do. Like you don't want to double into a loser. That's really stupid. Like basically what ended up happening was like we got really lucky because it coincided right with September and October being like the traditionally like bad months in the stock market. Like
Yeah.
September did get that. Like the middle of September, we got this like ripple from like Evergrande and like a bunch of other stuff that like
Yeah.
gave me all these points to like I could have cashed out at 708 on that leg down that we had and be
Yeah.
like green like on that put position, which I did end up selling that for like for like an okay profit, but like for the amount of risk I put on, like it was terrible. Like if you risk like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's just say for argument, like if you risk like 18 K or something for a position, and you only make two, like Jesus, I mean,
Yeah.
like
That's awful.
what that's horrible. Like the way, and this is what I also learned, I think, from that experience is like entry really matters. Like I was entering at a
Well, in this
really
time horizon.
entry really matters, I think, on the short and medium time frame because
Yeah.
I was entering like I didn't know where I was in the market. Like I was entering in because I thought, okay, the price moved up, so I'm gonna go trade against that. Like because it's gotta go back down. It's not a good It's not a good. That's like a terrible. At least with my current knowledge right now, that's like not a good reason to enter a trade. Like, it has to be some. There's got to be some fundamental driver for that, I think, and then
Hmm.
also like a technical driver too, which is like, okay, is this like support? Is this resistance? Like, what is this? Like where if it's just in the middle, I mean, that's kind of like where do
Yeah.
you go from? You could go any direction from where there is no like. I didn't think to look to the left on what the chart was to see like, all right, is this like, does this hit anything or like what is that?
Right.
So I got really lucky that I didn't lose everything on that trade that I put in. And actually, even on like the one that I ended up doing later, where it was like going taking a huge speculative play on calls after that, I don't think in the end like that's even following good risk management because like if you're thinking about like total account size, like you want to make your trades like 1 to 2% of your account, like not like 20% or 30, like definitely not 50%, definitely not
Yeah.
40%.
Definitely not.
Like 20% is a lot. 10%, I don't know, like maybe if you're I see I don't know, like I think more experienced people would probably like there are probably a lot of things that are still really wrong with everything about the scenario and stuff, but basically um, always good to just be careful and do something do just a small position like what you're willing to lose. What I
Yeah.
thought when I started to dig deeper after reading more and thinking about like Tesla technical in more like just try think of it in the more abstract sort of sense, like just like okay like let's ask an important question, like let's try to figure out like why is the volatility or the historical volatility really low Like,
Hmm.
whereas a year ago it was like trading like in this like really big range and stuff. I mean, now it's obvious, like, oh, okay, like when the price doesn't move very far, like for a long sustained period of
Yeah.
time, the volume is low. Like, well, that makes sense. Like that the implied volatility would be like all the options contracts were cheaper, implied IV wise, like 35% IV for these out of the money calls. 35% may be high within relative to the stock, even if it's like, but that's I would say a pretty good price to buy them at. Like you wouldn't want to buy them at like 66% if like they were trading 33% the day before.
Hmm.
Um, so like that like made me think about it more. I'm like, okay, well, I noticed that this is happening. I started looking at like iVol tracker. I thought, okay, like let's just say, all right, it seems like our thesis that this thing is going to go down like to a new low is wrong. Like this is not
Right.
happening. So I thought, okay, well, what would happen if I just bought like took a conservative, well, conservative for buying out of the money options idea of like, all right, what if Tesla is at 1,000 by the end of the year? How does it do
Hmm.
that? Like, okay, like, well, they do have earnings coming up. They do have, the prior earnings, like they were dumping out of earnings, like after, like, and this is just true for all of this stocks where they were like, because of the inflation fears, and the tapering or, like all that kind of stuff, like was just kind of keeping these earnings and growth stuff down. Like, uh, I just thought, okay, like maybe there's a certain point where like that, just kind of is priced into this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like maybe people were saying that early in summer, and you did see the rally and stuff. Like I think in June and July and everything. But like uh, with Tesla, I just thought, okay, like I've got something. I'm trying to like maybe build an edge here of like why I'm gonna buy these like slightly OTM calls. Like I
Hmm.
remember picking like 900 and 1,000 strikes. I mean, some of it was just like a hunch too, because like we talked about it and you thought, okay, like look, if it crosses 780, then this is invalid, and then it's gonna go to at least 900, its all-time high, because these prices kind of have a magnetism around them. Like if it's near a low, it might maybe would go lower. If it's near a high, maybe we'll go higher, because I don't know why, but like there I know that there's people have ideas around price action as like rubber
Yeah.
bands and stuff like that, where like there's like sort of momentum and energy like that pulls it to a
Well,
thing.
God, just relating to that, you talk to people sort of on Twitter at a party, doesn't really matter. There's all these people that don't really follow, the company, but obviously it's so huge and it gets so much media coverage, and there's so much growth and so many people that basically just come in when the thing is shooting like to the moon,
Hmm.
you know, and yeah, it's fun to go to a party and you know to have all of this stuff, like some amount of knowledge and expectations on where it goes. But that yeah, that totally makes sense. People do see the thing kind of shooting, and then they want to get into the thing, a little late. you know,
Yeah.
like it's really hard. Like I feel a little conflicted, especially now, at around 11:28.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
it's like, my friend asked me, he's big into crypto. Um, he's got an amount of Bitcoin and Ethereum and, shit coins and everything. And I'm like, I can't, I'm awful at predicting the short term thing. Like, I can't, like, I'm even worse at this than my brother is. and,
Yeah. I don't
and
know the crypto thing. Like that's yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
that's this whole separate, we'll talk
yeah.
about that someday. But, yeah, there's this whole thing like, hey man, why? We should have talked about this, in August and September, and I would have given him the same kind of advice. Like, yeah, this is a great time to buy. Um,
I
Obviously, we're going to end up, and now I'm reduced to basically saying, look, most of the gains that we're going to get out of this have basically been, had. Like, it's in the price.
I
Um,
think that's right in a
yeah,
huge sense because like you've seen okay it's broken out of its range, it's now pushed all-time highs, like it's now
yeah.
just set basically there's no top, like you could maybe argue from the technical analysis part. Oh, by the way, I should credit like I watched a lot of videos on YouTube from Russian trader
Oh
who
yeah,
like
yeah.
trades like like draws like Ganfin lines and
Well,
Fibonacci retracements
before
and stuff
before
that
you
is
give
really important, like really at least so far I found that it's worked for me. Like
yeah.
so.
So let's get finally around to it. So there's this final kind of thing where um, there was some calls, right, that didn't work out, and you
Yeah,
had to roll them over. So maybe let's start there and give and I think
calls
it
that
would
didn't
be
work out. You had to
valuable.
roll over.
Yeah, or what I don't know the exact terminology, but basically you needed to
Oh
you
yeah, I know what
basically
you're
not
talking about.
lose them. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so
yep. Can you give people an idea of the size, like how much you had to risk?
oh
Because
god,
this thing that I'm describing is like you start out with a certain amount.
I
I think we're talking
I could serve
$25,000,
as a
right?
cautionary tale, because like
But let's just lay this out.
here's where my emotions got to. I remember this really well. Like basically, I remember dividing up my trade into like different strike prices. Like I was gonna do like December, uh,
Uh-huh.
and then November, and then like October. Like basically,
Uh-huh.
I had like February, December, October, like February 2022, December 21, November 21, October. Like, and
Yeah.
then what I was doing was basically trying to like call in like shots, basically like okay, I'm gonna lob a shot of like money in 1 month to see like okay where's this price action gonna happen?
Hmm.
Is it gonna catch like these calls or is it gonna catch these other? Like all of them would go if it's going up. Like all of them will go up a little bit, right? But like some of the depending like when it happens when one flips in the money, like that area will become like a huge like when you buy an OTM call and it is like becomes in the money like really quickly and then in the money a lot, the thing is like insanely valuable. And like when you
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
the Tesla gamma squeeze, it's like what had happened was all these OTM calls like are now like hugely in the money because they're
Yeah.
buying like they're just buying up all the ones above it and then they're buying the stock to cover that position and stuff. So like um, the uh, the October ones that I bought like a bunch of these. Like, okay, maybe in like a few weeks it'll hit 900 because they just announced their deliveries, and that's gonna start to cause some run up. And we just caught the beginning of that move when it broke out of 780, and
Yes. Yes.
all options were flying because the volatility got a boost
Yes.
from that. Um, what ended up happening though, it broke to 800, and then got rejected. Well, like it got pushed down a little bit, like, and this is the typical thing that would happen on price action, over the year, and even in like old breakouts in Tesla in like 2019, um, it would go up to a point and then do like a retrade. Like it would just start consolidating or doing like a thing where it's burning options basically.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me. I had let me look up and see if I have it on my phone here. I took a picture of it. Uh, oh yeah, I remember this day. I had like uh 10. I think like I want to say like 10. I bought these like out of the money 900s that were expiring um October 15th because I thought, okay, like
Yeah.
if it's 900 before October 15th, like that'll be huge because I bought them for like $150 a piece or something. Um and I bought like a bunch of them. I bought like 20. They're basically like a couple weeks to expiry. Like, people will do that thing where they buy weeklies, where they buy like like four, 4 days to expiry, uh,
Uh-huh.
and like just every day they just get chopped in half, like where you could buy those things for like pennies by and they're like nothing on Friday. Like they're usually expire.
Yeah.
They're almost always expire worthless. Like they're they're WADAs, and like that's what that was going to turn like that was already that way because they were like 3 weeks out. So like if again thinking like the option seller, if you're thinking like Theta Gang, like they're the ones selling you that like a month or less to expiry because they know that like point 0.3 delta is going to be it's going to be like zero or it's
Hmm.
like it's a negative number for when you're selling and stuff, but like basically that's income for them and which is cool. um, and I remember when it hit 800, I doubled into. I bought like, all right, I don't know where to put the money. I'm just gonna go for it and buy more of them because it's like the emotion kicking in, and that's what I
Yes.
did. The next day it dumped, um, and then it just after that the price action was okay. It's gonna touch 800, then it's gonna be like a weaker attempt at 800, and then it's gonna be like retracing or like going excuse me, maybe I'm using my words wrong. It's gonna try test 780 again just to
Hmm.
that's the way that it is typical, I think. Like and then it did get actually what was interesting about it was you did get rising lows and it started looking like it was forming this like I think it was like a some kind of ascending triangle, like or people had some argument over whether or not it was like a symmetrical triangle or an ascending triangle where
Yeah.
it had to break over a certain price and it kind of didn't. um, until one point where it actually did keep like 850, like it was like 805, 806, and then got rejected back
I
below
remember
800.
drawing both
All of this
of
is
those
like
triangles. Yeah.
this is all like real chop, like and
Yeah. Yeah.
as holding these options because I was holding the short dated expiry ones and then I kept holding on my long ones. I had like 20 of these um thousand like December 17,000 calls.
Yes. Yes.
And like that was like really like basically the make or break position, like because that was about uh I don't know, like a few K. Like those were originally when I bought them, like before the huge run up, it was like I don't know, a few $100 per contract. So
Yeah. It
like that's I mean it's not expensive, but it's not really cheap either.
wasn't cheap. Yeah.
No, especially given like what the short dated expiry ones, which by the way, like I there was a point where okay, on the short leg of my trade, or not short leg. That doesn't sound right. When you go short, you're selling it. That wasn't it. Um, on my the short dated expiry part of the trade that I was trying to do, um, there was a point where I was like, okay, like I need this price action. Like I was hoping need and hope are like two words that I don't think matter in the stock market because it's not what
Nope.
happens. But um, I there was a point where I could have cashed that position out for like break even. Like I would have made maybe $14 even. Like, and I remember thinking like,
Right.
okay, like cool, I'm gonna put in the order, and I got filled for like 4 out of the 20 contracts. So I got
Yeah.
some of those, and then it went back down, and then I was down like a few $100. And I remember thinking like, today I will fight. I will not lose any money on this position. Like I will make sure that I hold this to make sure that every dollar I put in like gets out. And it was like, no, dude, like tomorrow if you don't cash out today, tomorrow it's going to be like you're not even going to get out half of this because it was
Hmm.
like I could have taken a few $100 loss and just be had been done with that position, but I didn't because I was stubborn, and so I didn't do
Yeah.
that. And I the next day happened, and then the next day after that, I think it was like by Wednesday of the second or third week into the trade. I have to go back and look at the dates, but like it was like by the middle of the week, even though I told myself by Monday I'd have to be out of the trade if it didn't like change what it was doing. I was like out of the 5K I put in, I got 700, 7 or 800 out, and like
Oh wow. Yeah.
and initially when I started that trade, it was like I'm not gonna put in 5K. I'm just gonna put in like 1K or something, and well, I thought okay, like that really ouch, yeah, that was really dumb. But at least I got this out of it, like it better than zero. Like, because it's like if you take these kind of losses, like you could build your account back up from 700K or 100 or $700 or like $500 or something. Like, good luck doing that from zero.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was basically the rationale that I had. I thought, okay, like, well, that was a huge error. Like, I should probably think about that. But I still have this other part of my trade, which those other things were only losing the gains that they'd had.
Hmm.
That from the initial impulse of when it broke to 7 to 800. Um,
Hmm.
and those were the ones I was hanging on to because I thought, okay, like it isn't October. Maybe it's like late October. Maybe it's like early or mid-November, somewhere around there. So I
Hmm.
took the rest. I took like the remainder of what I had sold out of the um, what was it? The October short-term calls, and I on a low day I bought a bunch. I bought as many of the oh yeah, no, this is my November position too. I liquidated my November position because I was like, okay, I don't want to get chopped up again through this consolidation stuff, so I'm gonna like pull this money out too. And I pulled that out for like I think around break even. And I thought, okay, like basically this is the cash I'm just going to use to just roll into my December position. So I bought 12 more December 1000 calls. So I had a total of like 32 contracts. And I still have my
Yeah.
February 850, which
Ye-
basically, yeah, like no, I don't have any of this now, which, it's like doesn't feel great, but it's like this is really an interesting learning experience though.
well,
Um, so I had 32 of those. Um, and uh, I was just basically, all right, well, this is it. Like, I have like about a month for this thing to do something. Uh, and if I'm correct, like, I think, using those options profit calculators are like, oh boy, they're so fun, but like, they're also, to me, they feel really dangerous because, like, they give you this, like, false sort of like, okay, all it has to do is just, like, acrobatics to like basically do this thing that's like gonna make a lot of money. Like, and you can pick these like strike prices that like you think are realistic but aren't. Like if you
yeah,
don't have
yeah,
like a sort of grounded like idea of like you know what would be a catalyst for it to do that, like what could happen. So I mean it's kind of like a wing and a prayer, like doing things like earnings. Like most people, say like earnings are super dangerous because they are because like everybody expected Tesla to dump after earnings. And like
yeah, yeah,
these numbers came out like where I was holding these contracts like and like looking at the like Rob Maurer's analysis and stuff and like looking at like what the street expectations were and uh I tried to consume as much information as I could about like the different range of expectation like and I saw the scary kind of article from Barron's where it was talking about like how there's like a secret number that it could be expected at like somewhere around like 170 EP earnings per
yeah,
share. And I thought, okay, well, like if the minimum is like 130 and like the like average is like around 160 or 170 or something, and then like the extreme, like the like real bulls are like 212, $2.12. Like, um, if it's like somewhere in between those, like I think that could be decent. And then the other thing that like really kind of took like started giving me this like weird like sense of like, oh, okay, wait a second, I think maybe this isn't like really accounted for. Is like everybody who is like a long term Tesla investor, uh, and like the like watching like Dave Lee and I'm at
yeah,
Peppers
yeah,
and like watching Yeshuv on Hit That Bid,
yeah,
um, I got the sense that like everybody, like just everybody who's talking about this expects this to dump. So like maybe it won't. Like I know that's like really like well that's like a coin flip basically, but like
yeah.
maybe if that is
Well,
like really something to markets where like if everybody expects a thing and then like there's like this stuff lining up like underneath that could create the potential for it to not do that, like it did something because like we were all watching it when it was like the next day like everybody was expecting it to I mean because the before during the earnings run up it was like a serious run up, like I mean
yeah, yeah,
people were like
yeah,
really like wow it's only like 10% away from its all-time high.
right, yeah.
And like but people were saying like well let's not get our hopes up, like everybody on like our Tesla investors club was like yeah I'm just
I generally appreciate that they
yeah
do that. I think it's a good thing to not have people get somebody coming in right now, that has really short-term expectations, and is just buying into all of the amazing hype, right?
yeah
it's bad. So I think it's valuable. It makes sense for them to do that. And um, so maybe Aaron really wants to go get cheeseburgers. Um,
Yeah,
so
that sounds
so
good. Yeah.
so, but you're still not off the hook until you just maybe for a couple of minutes just talk about what happened when this thing took off on you. Like how
Oh,
did because that Monday rolled around and you had these kind of like really sort of like you were not expecting the moon, and I remember asking you like what's if you got this to really go you know like your wildest expectations, and I think
oh, my
and you were
wildest
like
expectations were beyond what I'd sold at. So like, but
yeah,
like in my bare minimum thing was like, well, wait a second. Like my realistic scenario was like one. It was like actually like somewhere between 900 and 1,000. I didn't think it was past that really. Like that was
yeah.
anything past that was like beyond wildest expectations. So yeah, I
But
mean
I
that's
remember
bittersweet in a way, but it's also like this is such a I think a powerful learning experience. I had to go against what the conventional wisdom was, what I thought, which was like it's going to dump
right,
after earnings. I had to hold through that,
yeah.
which like I think honestly this is a lot of it is just being lucky, uh,
Well,
and
see in that particular trade, the problem here is that you've been at this and losing money for a year. Okay, and this,
I mean
you know,
I was like my
like
max.
that's not luck. I mean, that is like you were deliberate and
Yeah.
learning, the most expensive way. So,
It's a pretty
I
expensive college tuition, so
yeah, like so anyway, you ended up selling for over $200,000. And like just the scale of that is I know you've
it's
done so
not a
much to say like
it's not a success if you think about it because I mean in one hand like you could argue that it is because like if I set out to like okay like if I am correct and like this is like my expectation here's where I would exit like and I did agree like to myself like okay if it did do that I would exit because that's like 1,000% return like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty crazy. People would say like typically with the options like 35% is really good, 50% is like you should take that.
Yeah,
100% like what are you doing? Like that's a
I
lot,
remember that
you know.
we were on the phone and it was like in your wildest expectations and you were like if I made $120,000 something like that you were like and you just it was like your crazy high number
Yeah.
and the thing blew you know I remember, checking my phone around noon on Monday, and you were like, "Yeah, okay, so it's sold," because you set a stop loss on it, and I remember thinking like, "Jesus, like, I'm gonna call mom,"
Uh,
um,
so like
and this is the thing that we haven't communicated. We sort of pull the end of it, right? And I think it's really good that you. What were you gonna say?
well, I was just going to say that uh to begin with to even enter the trade, it was like, all right, I got to put an inordinate amount of money to
Yeah,
like make that kind of figure, which is like already like okay, if you think about it in the overall portfolio percentage, it's like, well, that's like now is about 20% of like my overall portfolio. So it's like that's not a it's
it's
not
not
great
great. I
because
I,
like if I'm
I, I
wrong, like
agree.
I was already wrong on that like for a little bit, which like okay, if I figured in a dollar amount, like I already lost like if I wagered like oh god, like how much? Okay, so like if I lost like I want to say like 4,300 bucks or something on one part of that trade, and it was like 25K total or something. Like, I mean, that's already like what 5% loss
Yeah.
on that one trade, right? And if I'm risking 20% of my portfolio to do it
Hmm.
somewhere. Like my figures might be off because I'm not really good at
Sure.
math right now, but like um, that maybe would have been okay. Like, it's starting to be wrong. Like, there's a level like in the market where like it could if it reaches this level, I'll be if it's like 10%. Like, okay, I can't do this. Like this trade isn't working. Like I got to get out of that
Yeah.
before I just lose 50% or something. But it didn't quite get to that point. Like the price kept it was what was really starting to make me consider like, okay, no, I don't think this is incorrect because momentum is built like it's increasing and it's starting to go parabolic. Like we were looking at the lows, the rising lows, and I learned that from the technical analysis videos that I'd
Hmm.
consumed. The rising lows were just building at like these steeper and steeper angles
Hmm.
where it was going parabolic. So I thought, okay, like you know what? I think that this is actually not going to matter. I think this is still correct. So I stayed with it. Um, and what happened was that was part of the reason I held through earnings too. Was that the momentum was just flying in the face of people's expectation of that big
Yeah.
dump that was sell the news because the technical part was doing a completely different thing, I think.
Right. Right.
And now it was possible that that could have been correct. I mean, anything can happen, right? But like, I just had this idea that, and I think this is a thing I've read in a lot of places. It's like, well, the usually what happens like the action happens before people understand it, I think. And I'm not saying I'm like
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that I'm like smart, like, oh, I called that. I was trying to be as I want to be as in tune with that before like there's an explanation for it, I think, like
Hmm.
because like usually by the time something reaches the news it's like already too late to do
Oh yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it
Way too
depends what
late.
it is.
Yeah.
Like if it's like breaking news that like I remember watching this one company. It was like UI. I can't remember that. This was the ticker name was UI, but like it was like a security something thing, and they had some like data breach. And I saw that in Hacker News,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, oh, that's probably gonna dump tomorrow. And like sure enough, like it dumped like $50, like
Oof.
because there's the it came out after hours kind of, so it's like there's not really a lot
Yeah.
of time for it to like, but you can be sure that pre-market there's gonna be something happening. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that was like kind of the lesson that I learned was like, okay, like uh, and I know that this is probably fundamental knowledge somewhere for the trading thing, but like usually the chart tells the story before the news does. I want to say, but I don't know if that's I that could sound like that sounds almost like bullshit to me. So like
Well, no.
I don't really
I
know,
mean,
but
I do know that that is broadly true. Because you look at the all of the Tesla price action, is some
yeah,
multiple, way above earnings, like 90 to 100x or something, and
yeah,
yeah, so we
that's
are
true.
living. There's all these future predictions, yeah. Um, so maybe I'll ask you one more question,
Sure.
because cheeseburger.
Yeah,
It's a
I'm gonna eat
really
two
great
myself.
cheeseburger, by the way.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So now that you've looked at it and you kind of I what do you think about like the future with your options trading and like
Oh,
you've really developed the skill set and you have to be careful about where you employ it and so what's kind of your time horizon like the next time you jump back in and in what?
well, like one thing that made me think about was that if I think like it's the maybe the best thing I could do is to try think with like a few different brains if possible. Like I know that doesn't sound right, but it's like to try think about like different angles of a way that a market could work. Like what would option seller what would be lucrative for an option seller because it's
Hmm.
like high volatility is really lucrative obviously because its premiums are really high and there is a
Hmm.
certain point where Tesla like will find a resistance in this upper levels like when the rallies do run out of steam eventually like it's just
Yes.
the way that things
Yes.
go um, and part of it I think is like risk management is super important especially if you like one thing I see a lot that like I wouldn't want to happen to me or anybody actually like of course like
Sure.
is like if you get like a good win like you don't want that to be like thrown into like the next play and then you lose everything obviously
Right.
um like how did you get to that is like really important like how did you like what if you thought retroactively, like what did I do right and what did I do wrong? Well, one thing I did wrong was selling too early is like always something to consider. I did a thing that I'd never really done before, which was I set like a trailing stop, like
Yeah.
because on options like it's kind of hard to set like uh, like you can set stop losses, but with options it's difficult because they're derivative of the stock price. They're not like
Yeah.
just always in line with it. So like there's these things that can happen where there can be mispriced in the first 30 minutes of open just because of like
Hmm.
the wild volatility. So um, you don't want to like set like a weird like you don't want to set something where it's like the most infuriating thing is to set a stop loss and like you get stopped out and then it's like just rebounds like exactly the way you thought it was going to go, right? So like you want to set it
Yeah.
at a level that'll be like okay, this has to be really wrong, like I have to be really wrong for it to hit this to get stopped out, like just so I can give it some room to actually like do what it's going to do. um
Hmm.
but then for like the other problem is that like I didn't have a clear idea of what level I would take normally. But on other trades I wouldn't have a
Well,
clear
this is
profit level that I would accept. Like, and this one I was like, okay, like now it's really near where I would. So like it's
yeah,
probably smart to set a trailing stop on this. And around that is like the around 1,000 where it was like okay, it was strict trying to break 1,000, and it seemed like a good point of like where there would be a pullback. Um,
yeah,
and what ended up happening was it got like just slightly bounced off of that, like kind of a slight rejection, and that's where it triggered my stop, and it got me out of the trade. Um,
yeah,
and then what ended up happening was it at like it kept going, like it punched through that to 1024 somewhere about there, another Fib
yeah,
level, which could be more resistance, and then ran up to 1100 like the next day,
yeah,
and was like definitely a lot of people exited there. Now
yeah.
the kind of the obviously the sad part of the story is it's like, well, when you have like those OTM options, like if you have 1,000 strike, if it's $100 in the money, like you had like 32 of those, it's like you went from being like whatever you were gonna make, like you just doubled it. Like if it's
Yeah.
1,100, if it's like 1,200, that's like just exponentially greater, especially with
Yeah.
like this high vol, like as the IV and like got pumped back into it. That's like basically like you just sold a winning lottery ticket, which is like, oh, it's really
Yeah,
sad.
that's
But the way I think about it, it's like okay, like if I want to do this for the long time, like I can't really look at it like that because like that's the thinking that kind of kept me in the losers too, which was like
hmm.
if I get rid of this, if I don't take profits when they're present. If I don't like be just think like realistically, okay, we have a tendency to hold on to our losers and like sell our winners too early, which like I'm
Yeah.
the prime example of in like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
my history that that I have so far. Um, I think what was important is like, okay, what if I didn't do that? Like, then maybe the worst scenario would have been to sell or to never sell, and then like it could have ran up to like 1,100, 1,200, not sell, trying to catch the top, and then it
Oh,
gives
that would be
then you
brutal.
give back
Yeah.
all of the gain because
Yeah.
like then there's like a huge like at a certain point there's a retracement, and that's where and then not to mention sideways trading, like what happened in January. There was like sideways at the
Oh, yeah,
top,
yeah.
and then uh,
That head and shoulders in there. Yeah.
before that, on the RSI was already having divergence before the all-time high. So like if you're looking at uh, the height on the overbought part of RSI, it was already a lower high by the time it was making this all-time high. So like there's already these like technical indicators that can. I'm not saying that they're 100% always going to be accurate, but for, it seems like for a lot of people, if they believe that like they could be of use, then they will be kind of manifest themselves that way, I guess. But like in any case,
Yeah.
like that divergence already kind of predicted that the it was going to be downside like pretty quickly. Um,
Yeah.
and so like I think that that's always good to look out for even on the maybe the shorter time frames. It's like, well, I could be wrong, so like it's if it hit my target, like just just be less emotional about it. Like just take it, and
Yeah.
I think that's probably wise. So
Man, that's fantastic.
And that's why I'm not
Congrats on.
not sad about it. Like I know if other people
Yeah,
are listening are like, wow, dude, like you're an idiot because you sold early. Like
you $1 million or something,
that's
right?
true, but there's always
But
another opportunity. So hopefully,
yeah,
like it's good.
holy crap!
And I do feel like an idiot. It's like sometimes too, so it's
Hey,
okay.
congrats on those gains
Oh,
and
thanks, man.
like like being in options and going against all of the stuff and even my advice. You know, um, we've got to do this again. I've had a wonderful time here, but yeah, it's cheeseburger time.
Well, it was
Um,
good. It was good to talk with you. So,
yeah, it was great talking. Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
see
Okay, bye, Zev.